comes in your head? Honoring God, yeah. So there are so many different ways that we can worship God. Did you know that you can worship God when you are eating dinner, or riding your bike, or doing your homework? Did you know that? You can, because what worshiping God is just thinking about what he has done, what he is doing, remembering about what he's done and what he's doing, thinking about who God is, how loving he is, how awesome he is, and telling him that he is these things. So that's what worship is. So you can do that anytime. But when we really think about worship, sometimes we think about just singing, right? Whenever we're singing songs to God. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is singing songs. And when do we do that? A lot of times we do that in church, right? When we're with our families and we're worshiping in church. So that's what I get to talk to you about today. So I'm going to read from the Bible, because this is God's word. And everything that it says in here is true. So I'm just going to read a little bit about what it says about worshiping and singing. It says, "Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Tell of his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous works among all the peoples. For great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods, for all the gods of the people are worthless idols. But the Lord made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before him. Strength and joy are in his place." So basically, that's just saying who God is and what he's done. And so because of those things, we sing to him and we praise him and we are joyful because of those things. So this is just like an example, I guess. But whenever something like good happens, what is like a natural thing that you do? Do you smile? Do you get excited? Nod your heads. Yeah. Give me feedback, because I need to know that you're listening to me. So that's something that just naturally happens. We get excited. Say if you are at a football game or a soccer game and your team scores, what do?
Cheer.
You cheer, you get excited, you throw your hands up in the air. And that's because something good happened, and so you're excited about it. Or if you went to the circus, I don't know if they even have circuses anymore, but y'all know what a circus is. So if you go to the circus and you see something really cool, you get excited, and it's something that's really exciting for you, and you get happy about it. So it's the same thing that happens whenever we're worshiping. We're saying these things that are so good, and so like we just get excited about it. So I'm going to tell you like the why behind we worship. So all of you in here love your mom, right? That's something that we all love our moms. They're great. We love our moms. Does your mom know that you love her? Yeah. Even if you didn't tell your mom that you loved her, does your mom still know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But when you walk up to her and you say, "Mom, I love you so much," what does that do for her? What does that do for her?
Cheer her up.
Cheers her up. You're right. It makes her happy. So even though she already knows that, and like if someone gives you a present, do they know that you're thankful? Probably, right? But you tell them that you're thankful for that. And when you see something that's really special, like, "Wow, Roxy just has a beautiful dress on today," or "She's so nice and has such a smile," if I just keep it inside, does that make her very happy? No, because she doesn't know that I think that, right? So it's the same thing when we're worshiping God. We love God, and he knows that already. And we're thankful for him, and he knows that already. And we know that we say that he's loving and he's so good to us, and he already knows that. But why do we tell him? Why do we sing about it? Because it cheers him up, right? It makes him hear that his kids are happy and they're thankful and they love him. Even though he already knows, but we sing it because we tell him. Just like when we tell our mom that we love her. So that's why we worship. So now I'm going to kind of tell you like how we worship. Y'all ready for that part? Okay. So have you ever been reading a book? Maybe you read chapter books. Chapter books are hard, right? Lots of words, very few pictures, not that fun. But we like them, okay? Have you been reading a book and you get like halfway down the page and then your mind starts to think about lunch or your friend or the fact that you're really tired today, and then you get to the end of the page and what happens?
You're already
Maybe obviously you forgot what you read, right? You have no idea what you read on that whole page because you forgot halfway down. So then what do you have to do? You have to go to the top and read it again. And sometimes that happens to me whenever we worship. Sometimes I'll be standing in church and I know I'm singing the song and I already memorized the song, right? Because we sing a lot of the same songs over and over because they're great. But then you start singing the words and then you just forgot and you're thinking about how you're hungry and how you're uncomfortable because you want to sit down and you're standing up and all these things. And so then what happens? You start to forget about what you're singing about. You start to forget about the words that are on the screen. So what this is called, and what's so important about worship, is that we start to fix our eyes on God, which means that when we're worshiping and reading the words on the screen, because y'all can read, I know that you can. So you start to read the words and you really focus on them and you say, I don't want to think about anything else right now except for God. So you start to read them. Some things like, great is our God, and how he sent his son to die on the cross for us, and all these things that we're like reading on the screen, and we're like, wow, that's incredible.
Didn't Jesus sing this song?
Wow. That's so cool that like this is happening, and God is that person, and I get to worship and I get to serve him. And then when you're reading these words and only focusing on the words, and you're not focusing on lunch or how sleepy you are or whatever, then like the natural response that I was talking about earlier, how when your team scores and you get excited, that's the same thing that happens when we're worshiping. So then you start to read these words, and the first thing that starts to happen is you start to smile, because you're like, wow, like our God is so cool. Our God is so cool. And then sometimes what might happen is your arms just go up, because you're excited, and that's just a natural response that happens. You don't have to do those things, but it seems to just kind of flow out of you. And that's okay. Then it can be awkward sometimes, right? Because just like my mom was telling me how whenever you guys pray, right, you go like this. You take a knee. Sometimes, right? In his kids, that's what you do. So was that kind of weird at first when she was like, all right, everyone get down on one knee. We're going to pray. And you were like, what? Why are we getting down on one knee? But then you looked around and everyone else was doing it, and everyone else was already on one knee, and you're like, oh, okay, like we can do this. And then after you started to do it all the time, it became a habit, right? So now it's not weird anymore. It's just a natural response. When mom says take a knee, you take one. Just like whenever you're worshiping, it just becomes a natural response to worship and sing, and then it just kind of happens. I know it happens for me. When I was younger, I was never really taught like how to worship, because everyone just kind of like assumes that you know, right? But it's okay. It's okay to like smile and get excited and lift your hands if you want to. It's okay to do those things. Even though everyone else around you might not be doing it, it becomes like a habit almost. You know what a habit is, right? A habit is something that you just do, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then it just becomes like automatic almost. So that's how we worship. When we're fixing our eyes on Jesus, all these things just kind of start to like happen, because you're thinking about how great God is, and it just like flows out of you. So now we're going to talk about when we worship. So can we do these things alone? Can we sing to God alone? Can we lift our hands alone? Can we smile and think about and remember all the things that God has done, who he is on our own? Can we do that by ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can, right? We can. So why is it so important that we're doing them with each other too? This is another example, okay? So back to our football game example, okay? So sometimes, could you go to a football game and sit there alone and watch the team, and would it be still exciting? Could you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but isn't it so much more fun when you're surrounded by all of your best friends and all the people that you love to cheer them on, and whenever someone scores, you give them a high five and you hug them and you're all so excited, right? It's the same thing about worship. And sometimes you do need to take a moment and rest, and sometimes it's better to just go home and watch the football game on TV and soak it in, just like sometimes you need to get away with God alone. Spend time with God alone and be refreshed alone, because that's so special time, because you need that rest. But whenever you're with everyone in church, surrounded by your family and your best friends, and you're all singing about how great God is and how awesome he is and how much you love him and all the incredible things that God's done, that is so much fun, because everyone's thinking about the same thing. Everyone's excited. Everyone's happy about it. And that's like what the environment should be. Environment's a big word. Environment's like how it feels and what it looks like in there. That's what our worship environment should be, is one of excitement. Because we're singing to the God who created the universe and the world, and that's crazy, right? That we just get to talk directly to him. So that's what it should look like in there. And that's why it's so valuable that you're worshiping with your family and with your friends, and you're just thinking really hard on the words that you're saying, because they're so cool and important. So yeah, that's what I have to say about worship.